we've interviewed hundreds of witnesses and survivors of abuse in Arakan State, and what we've documented are crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing against the Rohingya Muslim population. There were two waves of violence that occurred in this part of the country in June 2012 and then again in October. During these periods of time, thousands of Arakanese civilians descended on Muslim villages, burned the villages down to the ground. Security forces either stood by and watched, or in some cases directly participated in abuses. We also documented a very high level of organizing that was taking place between these two periods of time that was promoting ethnic cleansing. So there's a concern that the authorities did nothing to intervene to prevent this from happening, but on top of that, we documented extensive evidence of state involvement in these crimes. Tensions in these communities go back decades. The Arakanese Buddhist population and the Rohingya Muslim population have shared mutual animosity for a very long time. Both of these populations have suffered abuses under successive Burmese governments and regimes over the years, and that certainly hasn't helped the situation. But now what we've seen is it's turned into, it went from a situation of sectarian violence between these two communities and then became a more coordinated campaign to forcibly displace and forcibly remove the state's Muslim population. So what we found is actually government authorities and certain non-state actors in the state have altered the ethnic demographics of Arakan State in Burma. And this has all been part of a policy or a campaign of ethnic cleansing. One of the most urgent needs right now in this part of the country is humanitarian aid. There are tens of thousands of people being denied access to humanitarian aid, and there are preventable deaths that are happening. The government is aware of this and unfortunately, is not finding solutions, and they're not working to ensure that everybody who needs aid receives it. So that would be a first recommendation. Human Rights Watch is also calling for an international commission of inquiry into crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing in Arakan State. Part of the problem has been this issue of accountability. We've documented mass graves, for example. Unidentified bodies have been buried. There's been very little investigation. Family members of the deceased have not, the authorities have not spoken to them in any meaningful way. So this issue of a commission of inquiry would hopefully do a lot, not only to potentially stem violence from continuing, but also to establish some accountability, which would in turn help ensure that violence doesn't occur again in the future.